If you have a few minutes, I would love to tell you something about my new book, Filosofía para una vida única. My name is Lammert Kamphuis. I'm a Dutch philosopher, and in this book I explain how philosophy can enrich your everyday life. Work, friendship, love, sex, stress, because our life, our vida, is unique. We cannot practice it a few times and then go for it. We are immediately in the only performance we have. As the Spanish philosopher José Ortega y Gasset once wrote, imagine that you fall asleep tonight and during the night you wake up on a stage in a play. And you look around, you think, where am I? Who are these other people? What's my role here? What is expected from me? What's the meaning of this? When will this end? And these questions are exactly the same questions as the big questions of life. Because just as that play that you didn't choose to be in, you were just there, you only were immediately in the performance, such is life. We didn't choose to be born, and we are in the only performance we have. And in that situation, it's a great thing that philosophers have been thinking about the art of living for the last 2,500 years. So let me try and make you curious and share some ideas from the book. According to an Australian nurse, Bronnie Ware, the number one regret from people on their deathbed is that they lived a life other people expected from them. Number one regret. 2,500 years ago, there was a Greek philosopher, Diogenes. He already realized that the biggest obstacle for living a beautiful life is that we are always so concerned with what other people think of us. And he came up with a technique to be less concerned with what others think of us. It was quite an unorthodox technique because he decided to live a life completely true to himself, also if that meant that he did things that were contrary to what all the other people were doing or what they approved of. For Diogenes, this meant he lived in a rain barrel, he walked around half naked, he made love in public, he said anything to others what he wanted to say. And by doing that, he said, I don't want to shock people, but I'm making myself more immune for the expectations of others. Because when I do something that everyone is disapproving, I'm still alive. So I strengthen my autarkia. That's a Greek word, and it means something like your ability to stay true to yourself, your mental self-sufficiency. Of course, this Diogenes was a bit of a weird guy, but he became really famous. That famous that the most powerful man in the world, Alexander the Great, became fan of him. And Alexander, when he was in Athens, he wanted to pay his honor to Diogenes, so he went to see him, and he said, Diogenes, I'm a big fan of you. The way you live, the way you're true to yourself, you're not always concerned what others people think of you. More people should be like you. I'm a big fan, and you can ask me anything you want, and I'll give it to you. And then Diogenes said, well, if you want to give me anything, could you please do one step aside, because you're in my sun. And then Alexander was even more impressed. Wow, Diogenes is not interested in money or status or fame. Wow. And then Alexander said, if I were not Alexander, I would love to be Diogenes. And then Diogenes said, yeah, and if I were not Diogenes, I would also love to be Diogenes. So he became a symbol of being completely true to yourself. And I think this lesson from Diogenes is especially interesting in a time of social media. Maybe you've seen the Netflix series Black Mirror. There's one episode in which there is a future painted where people can constantly evaluate each other. And your average score determines if you're allowed to live in a certain area, what kind of jobs you're allowed to do, what kind of travels you're allowed to make. Of course, by far, we're not in that situation. But with social media, we are getting in a situation where we almost constantly give other people the opportunity to approve of our behavior or our ideas. They can like it or dislike it, they can comment on it. And that way, with the social media, we are constantly giving other people the opportunity to influence us with our expectations. So especially in these social media times, I think this lesson of Diogenes is as relevant as it ever was. And it doesn't mean that you have to go and walk around half naked in the city where you live. That's not my advice. But maybe next time when you walk on the streets and you feel like singing a song and you realize, oh no, I'm not, oh no, what will other people think of me? Well, then just sing this song. Or maybe the next time in a meeting, and before the meeting, you were thinking about the two options that you're going to discuss. You thought option A is the better option. And then during the meeting, all your colleagues are saying, oh, option B, I really like option B. And then the risk is that we hear ourselves saying, yeah, option B, I think that's better. But then stay true to yourself. Think of Diogenes, dare to be also to act against the grain and have the courage to not always do the things that other people want you to do. Because if we practice our autarkeia in these minor issues, it will make it easier to stay true to ourselves in the major issues of our career, of the way we organize our love life, the way we organize our social network, where we live, how we live. And then chances are smaller that on our deathbed, our number one regret is that we lived the life that others expected from us. The second idea I'd like to share is about the quantification of everyday life. Statistics and numbers are getting more and more dominant and powerful in our life. For example, with the Fitbit, with the targets in our job, with the likes that we get on social media or not. But statistics and numbers, they're great. They can help us to get a grip on reality, but they cannot describe reality in its fullness. Take, for example, a performance review on the workplace. These are often determined by the Excel sheets. Did you reach your targets? What was the average grade of your students? What was your sales volume? And it's important, of course, but these are not the only things that matter in a performance review, because in an Excel sheet, we cannot put into numbers how attentive someone was, or how friendly, or loyal to colleagues or the organization, or how funny that person was. And all these qualities, they do matter on the workplace. So if we only go for the numbers, we lose a lot of very important aspects of reality. Take, for example, this book. When will it be successful? If 10,000 people buy it, have a look at it and put it in the bookshelf. Or if 100 people buy it and read it from A to Z and reread it and put it on the nightstand and have it as kind of a guide for decisions in their life, of course, the second case, the latter one, is much more successful. But the only way we measure success is by sales figures. And there is this American author, William Bruce Cameron, who once said, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. An important lesson in times of quantification. But of course, I hope that a lot of people will buy the book and they will read it, reread it, have it on their nightstand. That would be amazing. But as the French philosopher Voltaire once said, and I quote him in this book, the best is the enemy of the good. So be careful with hoping for the best, because maybe then you cannot enjoy the good. Hopefully, I succeeded in getting you interested in this book. Thank you so much for your time and all the best from Holland. Thank you so much.